Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's really a difficult time for all of us as we are standing between you and lunch. Same for me also. But yes, I think we took with more time earlier. Not taking much time further. Friends, I welcome all of you to this particular third session of the today. And I must compliment to all of you for taking benefit of the capital market session. And most important, when I just look at participants, more than 100 participants are CAs from across Gujarat and out of Ahmedabad. That is something, a striking feature, which is for all of us. Maybe one of the very, very important things which is underlining the response of this conference is that whenever I ask somebody, a CA, what is your life? They say, my life is bounded by time. Today is 22nd June, fine, we can come. If it is 20th June, we can't come. So every CA wants that we want to be out of the legal bound timelines of life and we want freedom of our life. That's why you all are here. So let me introduce the faculty session, CA Anurag Goyal ji. He is the Executive Director, Investment Banking, RCM, AFF, EIF. He's a keynote, he is a CA having 20 years of diverse expertise in investment banking, corporate finance and capital market, including merchant banking. His expertise lies in fundraising, due diligence, business evaluation, structuring, capital market advisory, AIF, AMC structure, setup and operations. He has worked closely for many primary capital market institutions like IPO, QIP, OFS, right issues and many more. I think his experience itself is very high and we all are right now waiting to hear from you. Not taking time further, before I hand over charge to him, I request to facilitate him, Anjali, please facilitate him with the bouquet at momento. Charles. Thank you so much, Anuj. And I think we must appreciate that we are having some short of time so we can have as little as possible. Thank you.
I know, good afternoon, everyone. I know that time is short and then we are, I'm coming in between of your food and you. So I will not take much time to explain the process because anyways it's a long drawn process which I can't explain even in 1 hour session. But what we'll do, we'll try to keep more time for question and answers than this technical thing. Thank you. So this is just a data of the main board IPOs which has come in last 3 years. If you see interestingly, in 2022 is the largest amount raised was about more than 1 lakh crore. And gradually it has come down. The reason in 22 that we have seen is higher amount is because we have seen the IPOs of LIC, Paytm, Zomato and so on and so forth. So because of that the amount raised was much higher. Although the amount, the size, total capital raised in the IPOs has been reduced to almost half, but the number of transactions has increased, like 54 become 76 in last year. And currently in 2 months time, we have seen about 14,000 crore with 7 transactions. The interesting 2 parts that you can observe from here is that average issue size has come down, which was about 2,000 crores, which has now come to about 800 crores. And as we see, there are so many SME or even medium companies which are coming on main board. The ticket size about 300 crore, 400 crore. The average size will see about 500, 600 crores. And interesting, the listing, which everybody would be interested, even here the audience, it always been 20 plus except in 23. So it was always 26, 23 and currently we have seen about 30%. So this is the one thing that all investors would expect on the listing gains. We just incorporate some market cap data. There are about 7,000 odd companies which are listed on NSE and BSE put together. Out of that, about 4,600 is actively traded as per the exchange requirement. And interestingly, if you'll see this chart, about 1/3 companies are only above 500 crore market cap. So rest of the 2/3 companies are below 500 crore market cap. And why this market cap is important? Because you know that there are 3 categories in any IPO. And QIBs, when we say QIBs, they are more interested about 800 or 1000 crore market cap company post listing. So from that perspective, we have made this chart. And more than about 3000 companies are below 500 crore market cap. So which is now, recently we have seen the phenomenal response in the SME IPOs also. So those are falling in that category. So what is an IPO? I don't require to explain what is an IPO to this audience, because you all are learner investors, as well as the people from Gujarat. They know more than that. As Prakash ji has mentioned, ki we don't require to explain. Rather, we will take some feedback from here. So, but there are two things that I would like to hear. The most important, that before listing, so basically IPO is helped raising money for the company growth, or maybe given the exit to the existing shareholder, private equity, or any minority shareholder. The important thing is that the perception of a company changes post listing. So till the time that you are not listed, the company is that will use to take a parameter of कि ये 500 करोड़ का टर्नओवर कंपनी है, 1000 करोड़ का टर्नओवर कंपनी है. लिस्टिंग होने के बाद द परसेप्शन चेंजेस एंड वी टॉक अबाउट द मार्केट कैप, कि 1000 करोड़ का मार्केट कैप कंपनी है, 2000 का है, बिकॉज यू बिकम ए पब्लिक listed company. So that is why we have mentioned that preparation for going public is as important as being public. So the new parameter of looking at a company is the market cap. And the second important, ask why you need to have an IPO, or your clients or your friends or family or your any promoters who would be there in the audience. So sometimes it's not about only raising money in the company. We have seen that there are some companies which doesn't require money, but still you want to participate in those growth stories. So then they do a OFS and still list the company. The another advantage is that to rewarding the employees and your associates, because monetary, there is always a limitation of rewarding in terms of monetary rewards to the employees as well as the associate distributors. So you can always give the shares, and then they can also grow with the company. And rest of other things are generic, which you are also aware. So these are the type of category which is there in the any IPO, QIB, HNI, retail. You are very familiar with this, but these are the regulatory thing. The one more category should be there, Gujaratis, Ahmedabadis, which can subscribe more than all these put together can subscribe the IPO. So as you know, that QIB is like institutions, mutual fund, banks, insurance, FIs, AIFs, which is a new category which has gone phenomenally well. In last 10 years, we have seen about 11 lakh crore AUM is managed by the AIF. Mutual fund used to be about 8-10 years back, it should be about the similar size, which is now 50 lakh crore. So this AIF family office has become a new investor category, and they are coming in the QIB. HNI is, anybody who is applying more than 2 lakh comes under HNI, and individuals is anybody who is applying less than 2 lakh is coming in retail. These are the main criteria of bringing an IPO on the main board. The 2-3 important one I mentioned, because rest anyways we will have, is the average operating profit of a company in last 3 years should be 15 crores, and every year should be profitable. So this is the most important. Then all these criteria which is mentioned on the slide, like net worth has to be 1 crore, net tangible assets has to be 3 crores, and if in case change in the name of the company in last 1 year, the 50% of the income has to be with the new name. So all these criteria if you meet, then the structure of an IPO would be 50%, up to 50% would be QIB, 15% with the HNI, then there are two subcategories, then 35 is retail. If you are not meeting these criteria, then still you can come an IPO, with an IPO, but the criteria is that 75% will be QIB, 10% will be, 15% would be HNI, and 10% would be retail. And the below table shows the exchange criteria. Exchange criteria is also in addition to the SEBI requirement. So obviously the background or track record of the company has to be 3 years. If company is less been converted into from LLP to company and the promoter has a track record, still is eligible for an IPO. Then there is no winding up petition, there is no NCLT, there is no defaults by the promoter in bank loans. The minimum, the net worth requirement is 10 crores. The post-issue market cap should be 25 crores, which is, but obviously it will be there. And the minimum issue size has to be 10 crores. These are the criteria for main board. SMEs are a little different from this. So there are various intermediaries involved in the any IPO apart from merchant bankers. So we have a limited role of playing as a merchant banker, but we can always go beyond and then play a role of an advisor also. But most important intermediaries that we have mentioned here, and the reason why we have mentioned here is as a CA profession, I'm also chartered accountant and been there business 20 years. And there are a lot of people who want to come this capital market or the IPO side. So there is an opportunity for them also to play a role in any of these intermediaries. That's why I mentioned the role also. So merchant banker, everybody knows that we have to play as a regulator requirement of a due diligence and get the issue done. So our role is to start from the day one and ends listing, and after that also we keep on serving the client. Then legal and lawyers who does the legal due diligence, financial due diligence and other things, and drafting documents, agreements, etc. Underwriters who underwrites the issue, broker syndication, all that they have to procure the applications, distribute, coordinate amongst the investors. Bankers who will manage the escrow account, IPO account, collection, refund, escrow accounts. Depository and RTA for demat of shares, allotment, and credit of demat shares on allotment. Auditors, CA Institute and ICAI, Independent Chartered Accountant, Secretary is more of a certifying the financials, restatement, all the matter related to the secretarial like ROC compliances, share build-up and all. SEBI and exchanges requires for regulatory thing. I hope I'm not running very fast. Industry report, now we have to involve an industry to cover a company because we cannot write anything which is available publicly. So we have to have a proper source, and we also need to compare our company, the company which is going public, with the other unlisted or listed companies. So from the company's position point, it's very important to have a industry report which is made very properly. Then monitoring agency, if you raise any money in the IPO, you need to require a monitoring agency to monitor the funds utilization, whether it has been used as stated in the prospectus. Then PR agency for the road shows, investor meets, etc. And printer is required to print the forms, documents, etc. So why you need to have a trusted BRLM and advisor is first most and important is the positioning of the company. We have seen there are so many companies, and the previous two speakers also mentioned that we have to see the sector, how is the sector doing in market, and then the companies in that. So that is very important from the positioning perspective, how this company is positioned in the industry itself, right? What is the market size? What is the market share of that in business? How is different from the other companies which is going? And then obviously the other parameters comes the group structuring. So if you see investors' perspective, what investor would like to have, each promoter or a group should have one company in the similar business. So sometimes we have seen there are multiple, the promoters are running multiple companies, maybe because of the requirement of a business like infrastructure, real estate companies, we have seen that each project into SPV. So that is okay, but the thing is that ultimately it has to be consolidated at one level at a holding company, and then you should plan an IPO for that holding company. Because even though you are having a 100% subsidiary, the whole business has to be consolidated in one company, so that there is no conflict of interest of a promoter to run a parallel business in another company which is not part of public. Then optimizing the capital reserve, issuing the bonus shares, structuring the IPO size, promoter holding, post-issue, pre-issue. Then we also advise the companies in raising bridge funding. So let's say IPO is a process which we'll discuss in later slides, is at least 6 to 9 months process. If they require immediate money, then we can raise it through equity, pre-IPO, or maybe through bank funding. And then we also advise on related party transactions, appointing other intermediaries, financial indebtedness. The company has to appoint a good governance independent board. 50% of the director has to be independent, and one woman director has to be there. The chairman of the audit committee has to be independent director. All these things we advise, and then we take care while doing the process. This is the roadmap for any company who is planning to. So these are the things that they have to do. So before, let's say, come to us or coming to any merchant banker, they can start looking all those options to review, like alteration of memorandum and article of association, capitalizing of reserves, board of director, which we discussed, and the auditor has to be peer reviewed. If your current auditor is not peer reviewed, then you have to change the auditor as a peer review auditor. Then financial information, we have to restate the last 3 years financial information, and if there is an interim period, then 3 years plus that interim period. And then objects of the issue, we have to identify for what purpose that company is raising funds. And then legal due diligence, then appointment of intermediaries other than merchant bankers. So we have segregated the listing process in 3 parts. One is the pre-preparation, where, as I mentioned that in my previous slide, all these things has to be prepared, advised to the company, so they are ready to start working on the due diligence or prospectus. And second part is the IPO execution, which is preparing the prospectus, filing it to the regulators, SEBI, NSE, BSE, getting the approvals, preparing the roadshow document, presentation, model, etc. And the third part is the marketing to the investors and the listing. And the marketing, if you see any IPOs, so we have seen generally the marketing start with the institutional investors, QIBs, because they are the investors who will derive the price or give the pricing sense that, yeah, this is the value that we would be interested in coming an IPO. So that is how this marketing starts in an IPO. These are the various stakeholders. So A is all the promoters, management, the employees, the private equity funds. And on the B is all the intermediaries involved in the transaction, the merchant banker and all of the intermediaries. And C is investors, which is bifurcatedly into institutional, domestic and retail. So there is always an inherent conflict of interest amongst all 3 intermediaries, because promoter wants highest valuation and quality of investors. And the intermediaries wants the transaction done quickly and they get their fees. And the investors always want the lowest valuation and listing day gains, which we have seen in the past years. There's always a double-digit gains. So we have to play a role to equalize everything so that we can take care of everybody's expectation and go ahead with the IPO. So this some point I already covered. There are 2 important points in this, is that when we do an IPO, so IPO is a process which takes 6 to 9 months. But the most important part is that every company is not suitable or liked by every investor. So we have to do the targeting of the investors so that the relevant investor can be approached basis their investment philosophy, and they can participate in the IPO. So that book can be built. So we do this targeting of the investor for any early targeting of the investors, and reaching out to all the research and analysts so that they can write about the IPOs and research reports, etc. These are the timelines. So generally, as I mentioned, the best case scenario is 6 months, and generally we have seen that 6 to 9 months any IPO can be listed. 3 months is the preparatory period, and 2 months is the post-filing approvals that we have seen that SEBI and exchanges take, and 1 month is the roadshow, marketing, and then the finally listing. And these are the component of listing cost. I already covered all the intermediaries in my previous slide, but these are the various costs that intermediaries involved, and they charge the cost. So the transaction fee side, the promoter, the management, company side, that promoters and CEO has to be involved, apart from the board, KMP, CFO, company secretary and compliance officer, and the other associate. And from the merchant banking side, the most important that senior team of merchant banker has to involve a transaction. Generally, we have seen in the larger transaction that senior team is available on a day 1, on the pitching time and on the listing time. But if you have a senior management involved in the through entire process, then the transaction goes very smoothly and without any hurdles. And then the execution team, then the sales team who market the issue, and then analyst and the broker syndicate. And targeted investor, as I mentioned, is domestic institutions, FPIs, AIFs, HNIs, ultra HNIs, family offices, retail. And there are different strategies to approach them. It's not that the same approach will be applicable to the QIB as well as the FPI and the retail. So there are different approach to reach out to the investors. This is just a slide for your information that I put a comparison between main board and SME. The minimum paid up capital required on main board is 10 crores, and for main SME IPOs is between 1 to 25 crores. Timelines from the approvals perspective is main board is about 12 weeks, and SME takes 4 to 6 weeks time. And in case of main board, we require approval from SEBI as well as exchanges where it is going to list. In case of SME, it's only exchange, the particular exchange that we are going to list. In terms of lot size, we have seen that in a main board IPO, you can allot minimum 15,000 to a retail, wherein in a SME IPO, it has to be minimum 1 lakh plus in multiple of 1 lakh. The number of LOTs can be 1,000 in the main board IPO, and in SME it has to be minimum 50. So trading lot post listing is 1 share in main board, but in SME we have seen it's a multiple of 1 lakh rupee, not in terms of shares, and in multiple of that 1 lakh rupee. And underwriting is not mandatory on main board, but and SME is mandatory. But frankly, the underwriting, how underwriting works exactly is that if somebody wants to come in IPO, so you have filed whether it's SME or main board. If I don't have the investor, if I don't have the minimum 1 or 2 times of subscription, so merchant banker will not open the IPO only. So frankly, well, it really doesn't matter whether you underwrite hard 100% or it's soft underwriting or hard underwriting. The important thing is that the issue has to open, then only underwriting plays the important role. Before, till the time that issue has not opened, there is no role of underwriting. Then market making is not required on a main board, and SME is required, and that's why we have seen the cost of a main board is much lesser than the SMEs, because the market making involved for next 3 years. And then quarterly compliances in the main board and the half yearly this thing. And this one interesting fact that Mr. Kedia also mentioned, that movement director on the board of main board company is compulsory when SME is not required. These are some of the professional opportunities that is available for CA. You can be an advisor to any company. You can be associate with a company for formatting a business model, object of the issue, group restructuring, advising on them how to plan next 4-5 years, or you can work with any of the intermediaries. Thank you.
You had mentioned syndicate members.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned syndicate members in one of the slides.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Syndicate members are the brokers basically. So merchant banker will have a syndicate members, and then syndicate members will have brokers, sub-brokers.
And
so any NSC, BSC member could be a syndicate member.
Okay, ECM executive team, what is?
So ECM is equity capital markets. तो मर्चेंट बैंकिंग जो अपने लिस्टेड कंपनीज का जो भी ट्रांजैक्शन होता है उसको ECM बोला जाता है. टेक्निकल मतलब डिवीजन है ये, जैसे इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकिंग है वैसे ही ECM है.
Okay, why ticket size is at least rupees 1 lakh? Logic behind that?
No, so this is the regulatory requirement, and when the on SME is 1 lakh.
No, what is the?
So logic is that since the regulator feels that SME is very small size, new companies which is having very limited profits, and maybe some of the SMEs have very limited track record. So they wanted that retail investors should not participate in that, and that's why they kept is the 1 lakh is the minimum ticket size. But frankly, if you'll see, nowadays that even in SMEs, the issue is subscribing 1,000+ times. So it really doesn't matter. But still they kept it, but you please understand post-listing also. It's not only IPO, right? The company will be there for life. So post-listing also, the small companies, if they don't perform, or if they perform but they don't do good compared to the market peers, then retail investor can stay away from those. That is why they kept a minimum investment of 1 lakh. Yes, there is no restriction. There is no restriction, regulatory restriction of not having multiple merchant bankers, but generally it's depend on the size. And SMEs we have seen till now is 30-40 crore, and 50 and 60 we have seen couple of them. But mainly क्या है कि बड़ा size ही नहीं है तो उसमें एक का ही 2 लेके भी आप क्या करोगे? And second, what we have seen, what I understood, that the market making and underwriting is compulsory. So there is always there may be a conflict of interest among the banker itself, ki who will take which role. But yeah, you can have. There is no regulatory obstacle in having multiple bankers. No, it's not mandatory.
Hello. There
Yes.
is a book building process as well as fixed price issue. And someone is mentioned book building process, then it wants to convert to fixed price, whether it's possible.
तो सर दो अलग अलग चीज़ है. फिक्स प्राइस इशू इज जहाँ पे आपका 2 ही कैटेगरी है. 50% is about 2 lakh and 50% is below 2 lakh. तो बेसिकली क्या है कि उसमें QIB नहीं है, QIB को भी HNI कैटेगरी में ही आना है और अदर देन QIB को नॉन HNI कैटेगरी में आना है. तो उसमें कैटेगरीज ही दो हैं. तो फिक्स प्राइस है, बट फिक्स प्राइस का ट्रेंड नहीं है बिकॉज यू डोंट हैव एनी रिजर्वेशंस फॉर द QIBs, राइट. तो अगर QIB के लिए रिजर्वेशन नहीं है तो दे विल नॉट लाइक टू पार्टिसिपेट इन IPO. तो जनरली मेन बोर्ड पे IPOs इन लास्ट 10 years वी हैव सीन मे बी 2-3 IPOs. आई डोंट रिमेंबर दैट मच हैड कम, बट SMEs में कुछ आए, फिक्स प्राइस ही आए थे. बट नाउ इफ यू वांट दैट इंस्टीट्यूशनल टू पार्टिसिपेट देन यू हैव टू कीप अ कोटा फॉर देम. And the best case scenario that we have seen is 50% QIB and 15% is for HNI and 35% is retail.
Hey, what? Suppose you have done a.
But there is no compulsion on SME to keep a 50% QIB.
Hey, suppose book building process there is a compulsion na 50% QIB.
In main board?
No, SME issues.
नहीं compulsion नहीं है sir.
Because it has been mentioned that 50% QIB is compulsory in book building process of SME.
तो बुक बिल्डिंग का सर जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो फिक्स प्राइस से अलग है. बुक बिल्डिंग में आप अप टू 50% होता है, वो एटलीस्ट 50% नहीं है. तो अप टू 50% है. इट्स अप टू द बैंकर एंड कंपनी बिफोर फाइलिंग द DRHP ओनली दे डिसाइड कि वेदर दे वुड लाइक टू गो अप टू 50% और अप टू 20% और अप टू 10 और 0. बट द मोमेंट इफ यू रिमूव द QIB then you will not do a book build issue, then you will do a fixed price issue, right?
Suppose a QIB quota is not fulfilled, then it can be switched over to retail or HNI.
There are certain rules that has to be followed. It's not that it's not subscribed then you follow. If it's a for up to 50% then you can do, yes, but it's at least 50% or at least 75 then you can't.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Please.
Hi sir, thank
Hi.
you for the presentation.
Yeah.
So my question is, who decides on the IPO pricing? Whether it is the company board or whether it is the merchant bankers that you said, right, who are into the discussion when the pricing is to be decided?
Yeah, no. So very valid questions, frankly.
Yeah.
So देखो मेरा ये बोलना है कि कोई भी चीज़ है अपने जैसे बोलते हैं, जैसे हमारे बॉम्बे में आपूस आम आते हैं, आपके यहाँ आते हैं, तो जब सीज़न शुरू होता है तब वो बहुत कॉस्टली रहता है बिकॉज डिमांड सप्लाई है. तो हर चीज़ में प्राइसिंग किसी भी चीज़ की हो, चाहे IPO हो या कोई प्रोडक्ट हो, डिमांड सप्लाई है. सो सबसे पहले एज आई मेंशन कि सबसे पहले हम मार्केटिंग करते हैं इंस्टीट्यूशनल को बिकॉज 50% IPO उन्हीं का है. सेकंड क्या है, वी हैव सीन कि रिटेल HNIs दे फॉलो कि इंस्टीट्यूशंस कौन आया है, कौन सा म्यूचुअल फंड आया है, कौन AIF आया है. अभी सुनील सिंघानिया जी हैं तो ये इन्वेस्ट थ्रू AIF. तो कौन सा इंस्टीट्यूशन आया है, किसका आया है, उसके हिसाब से दे फॉलो द प्राइसिंग, दे फॉलो द IPO इन्वेस्टमेंट. सेकेंड क्या होता है कि रिटेल और HNI जो हैं उनको दे आर वेरी, मतलब कि अभी 5 दिन 7 दिन में करना है तो बताओ 1 महीने बाद का देखेंगे. इंस्टीट्यूशन दे टेक देयर टाइम 3-4 weeks टू एनालाइज. देयर इज अ प्रॉपर एनालिस्ट हु विल एनालाइज, दे विल गो थ्रू द मॉडल, एवरीथिंग, द पास्ट रिकॉर्ड्स एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड देन दे डिसाइड द वेदर दे वुड लाइक टू पार्टिसिपेट नॉट. So that process, as I mentioned, first we start with the institutional investors, mainly mutual funds, FPIs, AIFs and insurance companies. So we start with them and basis their commitment, like, so let's say I am coming with a company at 100 rupee IPO, 100 rupee price band. So we'll have a discussion with them. They will say, no, I am interested in 100 rupees. Some will say I am interested in 95. Some will say I am interested in 80 rupees. And that is why it's called book build issue. Ki if I am looking for a, let's say 500 crore issue, so at what price my book is built? So if let's say mera 100 ka hai, 95 or 85, so now if I let's say 85 cut off, if I get my full book of QIB, then tentatively the price would be about 85. And then obviously merchant bankers, the other merchant bankers who are there, other than if this is multiple bankers, along with the promoters, selling shareholders, sit and decide the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a follow-up question, like there is no, I would say, a limit to the pricing, right? From the regulators, like they can overprice the issue as well.
Yeah, there is no pricing cap, but the thing is that the things has changed in last 2 years. So now when we file the document to SEBI, because everything is not come under public domain, right? So for public, let's say you give the number of shares in the DRHP, right? And you don't have the price, so you don't know what is the size of issue. But when we file to the SEBI and exchanges, we have to give the IPO size, because basis that the fees has been calculated, which needs to be paid to SEBI and exchanges. So there is the IPO size which has been shared with the regulators. And when we prepare a basis of issue price, In any IPO, if you'll see the section, so we have to give the basis to the SEBI. And there now we have seen in last 2 years, there are a lot of questions on why you are pricing this, what is the peer group, who are the other players, why it's cheaper, why it's costlier, why it is not matching this criteria, ROE. So now regulator also asks so many questions which may or may not come in the public domain, right? But there is a lot of questions from the regulators on the pricing. It's not that we can do whatever. And as I mentioned, it's a demand supply. So if somebody is willing to buy, so we have seen in case of LIC also, right? It's almost a 1 ka book value, adjusted book value, but still it listed below that, despite of having such demand, right? So it's always demand supply, and obviously regulator will keep a strong check on it. And if issue falls after listing, it doesn't perform well and all these things. So we also receive law letters from SEBI. So it's not that simple, but yeah, there is no restriction technically.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Is there any lock-in period for QIP in SME issues?
Sorry?
Is there any lock-in for QIP in lock-in for the sale?
सर मैं SME एक्सपर्ट नहीं हूँ, बट फिर भी मैं आपको बताता हूँ, लॉक इन का जो क्राइटेरिया है ना, SME में प्री इशू जो भी कैपिटल है, इशू आने के पहले जो भी कैपिटल है वो मिनिमम 1 ईयर का लॉक इन होता है ऑन SME इशू. मेन बोर्ड पे मिनिमम 6 मंथ्स का लॉक इन होता है. और एंकर के लिए जो लॉक इन होता है वो सेम है SME हो या मेन बोर्ड हो. तो एनी एंकर इन्वेस्टर हु गॉट 10 करोड़ अलॉटमेंट इधर मेन बोर्ड और SME, तो 5 करोड़ उसका 45 डेज का लॉक इन रहता है और 5 करोड़ उसका 90 डेज का लॉक इन रहता है. बट बाकी जो कैटेगरी है QIB, HNI, रिटेल अदर देन एंकर, वो डे 1 पे इट्स दे आर फ्री टू सेल, देयर इज नो रिस्ट्रिक्शन.
Sir, nowadays trends are moving towards non-deal roadshow as well. So in case of QIP ka jidhar quota is large, generally in that situation or a QIP issue, there is a situation where company is doing NDR. So any reason?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
What is the reason of non-deal roadshows? So I have seen companies doing non-deal roadshows before announcing the deals, mostly to the QIPs, FIIs and DIIs.
So it's for listed companies. Once you are listed, right? So now there are 2 ways to meet investors. So one is that if you are doing any transactions, follow-on public offer, QIP or any preferential, anything, then you do a roadshow. And second, including the result session that we have seen every quarterly results, so companies do the analyst meet, con calls, etc. Second, what we have seen ki when like PSUs and so just to familiarize the company with the investors. So let's say there are so many PSUs, which is not, they don't do any con calls. So now if you want to get them, reach out to them, so what is the process? So that is how this concept has started, non-deal roadshow. The reason is that to reach out to the investors and to clarify questions, to give the what is the company strategy going forward and all this thing, and that will always be available public domain also. So idea is just to familiarize the company to the investors.
So it's only for the listed companies, already listed.
Yeah, generally because unlisted though there is no regulatory restriction of doing a show, that you can always meet. But for listed company, even you are doing non-deal roadshow, you have to intimate to the exchanges and you will find to whom they are meeting, etc.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, a big round of applause for those people who are sitting here and have controlled their hunger. So a big round of applause for you guys. And we are really grateful to see Anurag for sharing in-depth understanding of IPO and sharing the queries for the nuances related with IPO fundraising. We look forward for many more sessions with you. And 2 more announcements. The Jain food is on the 1st floor. And 2 more interesting sessions to come. And we are resuming at 2:25. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.